She founded Learn the Risk, so she's going to introduce Dr. Jim Meehan to you.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today for this really important issue. One of the most important issues facing our day, our time today. So I'm really excited to have Dr. Jim Meehan here. He came down from Tulsa because this is such an important issue for him, for humanity, for the kids. And he drove down here, paid for the hotel, everything, because he is in this. He is committed. And he is really on our side in this. So I am really excited to finally meet him face to face today. He runs Catalyst MD out of Tulsa. He is a medical doctor, medically trained, and he saw everything from the inside. And he stepped outside. Do you know what kind of balls that takes? Yeah. Yes! Jim is the epitome of a brave warrior in this fight. And I am honored to stand up at this podium today and speak with him this afternoon at the Health Summit. I am really excited to introduce Dr. Jim Meehan to you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. There's no greater joy than being introduced as a warrior, because we all need to be in this fight, right? Well, my name is Jim Meehan, and I am a medical doctor, an MD. I was trained in, my primary focus is ophthalmology. I also did an internship in internal medicine. I've trained at some of the top institutions in the United States, from Johns Hopkins to the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology to Washington University in St. Louis, one of the top 10 ophthalmology programs in the country. While I was there, I was also a medical editor of a journal. I know how to read the science, and I've seen the science being corrupted progressively over and over. Throughout medical school, I guess I had an advantage over a lot of my classmates. The reason I probably stand before you today is because I was older when I went to medical school. I'd already gone through basic infantry training, advanced infantry training. I'd already run a regiment. I'd run a company, and my mind was formed and forged. It wasn't just a bowl of mush, that could be so easily indoctrinated by the pharmaceutical industry that runs medical education in this country. So, it's this skill set that I've developed over the years that has really enabled me to kind of see through the mess. A mess that is, a recent study showed that 43% of children in the United States today, 43%, have one of 20 chronic diseases. And that doesn't even include obesity. So 43%, almost 1 in 2 children in this country today are suffering a chronic disease. We have the worst infant mortality rate in the developed world. We are 34 out of 34 countries in infant mortality. More children, let me say this again in another way, more children in this country die in the first year of life than in all the other developed countries. And that is a national tragedy. And that is something that we simply cannot ignore. Am I right?
That's right.
So I've told you a little bit about me, and I love this group. I love seeing the Vax shirts, the Oklahomans for Vaccine Health Choice. Even drove all the way up from Owasso, Oklahoma to come to this. Thank you for that. You're a warrior. Everybody that is wearing these shirts and is here today, you're a warrior fighting for your children, and I congratulate you on that. And just know that this medical doctor stands right next to you in that process. So I want to hit a little bit more on this epidemic of childhood illnesses. Do you realize that 1 in 4 children today are on psychotropic medications, antidepressants, ADD medications? 1 in 4. That's from the CDC's own website. 1 in 6 children are learning disabled. 1 in 9 have asthma. 1 in 10 has a mental disorder. 1 in 13 is severely allergic to food. 1 in 20 has epilepsy. And the autism rate is about 1 in 45. And it's more common in boys. 1 in 400 children have diabetes, and again, the worst infant mortality rate in the developed world. So, the question is, why am I so different than these other people, than these other doctors? Why are so many doctors not here today standing and fighting for the problem that we see in those numbers? And the conclusion that I come to is It's simply indoctrination. It's a process that begins in medical school. You know, Harvard medical students today are fighting a battle at the campus of Harvard, which is also one of the headquarters of Merck, by the way. But they're fighting a battle to get corporations and big pharma out of the classrooms, because those classrooms are being dominated by big pharmaceutical companies. When you have a professor that chews out a student because he talked against Lipitor, you got a real problem, because that professor is on the board of the pharmaceutical industry and multiple boards of the pharmaceutical industry. When you have that kind of inculcation and corruption of the medical educational process, you have a problem that looks like 43% of children in the United States sick. And that's a sickness in and of itself, and it's one that we've got to eradicate. So I know a little bit about you. I want to know what your issues are. I want to know who my audience is. So how many of you here, your main concern is vaccine safety? How many actually have a vaccine injured child? Wow, look around. The place you look today, that's the kind of numbers you will see. You can't look in a school today and not see kids wearing helmets and earphones and in special classes because they have a disease that has a great possibility to have been caused by a vaccine injury. Yeah, I'll say it. Many of these are vaccine injured children. So I mentioned that I am a former medical journal editor. I've learned how to distinguish good science from bad science, how to recognize a corrupt, poorly formulated study. And I can tell you today that much of the medical literature is full of corrupt studies. Has anybody actually read or looked at and analyzed the Gardasil study? I mean, that is one of the most dangerous vaccines on the market today, and it's being broadcast all over media. It's all over TV. It's one of the reasons why a lot of, because pharma spends so much on commercials and spends so much, contributes to the bottom line of media, that you're not hearing a lot of this. You'll probably barely see this kind of a talk broadcast on media today. But it has to do with the pharmaceutical industry spending so much money to fearmonger you into believing that something like Gardasil, which had no safety, the safety study it's not a safety study, folks. You can't even refer to it as a safety study. It's the most dangerous, deadly clinical trial that I've ever seen. 40 previously healthy 9-year-old to 26-year-old young women predominantly, and a few young men died in that study. And they died at a rate that was at least 20 times the rate of death in that same age-matched population in the general population. That study killed so many of its participants. Never let your child be enrolled in a pharmaceutical study, because the parents that allowed that to happen to their children lost a bunch of them. And they lost them at a rate that was greatly exceeded the general population. And here's one of the ways that they did it. Here's how the science gets corrupted, and this is what drives me crazy. As somebody that can see through the deception and the subterfuge, what Merck did was they created a fake SIBO. Hashtag that, fake SIBO. Fake SIBO is what you do when you want to hide adverse events. A placebo should be an inert substance. It should be saline being injected into a study population. What Merck did is they took that horrible aluminum, that AAHS, and they called it a control group. They did have a little saline group. It was 594 in a saline control group, but the real study group was over 10,000, and it was in a fake SIBO group. And then what they did is they said, well, 21 people died from Gardasil in the pre-licensure trials. 19 died from the fake SIBO group. So really, those aren't very different, are they? So Gardasil is no worse than the control group. And they even say placebo group, but it wasn't a placebo group. And the problem is that deception is difficult to see. It's difficult to understand if you haven't been trained the way I have. But you know who's been trained the way I have? Doctors that are pushing this crap. You know, that journalists should be smarter than to fall for that crap and allow Merck to be advertising on their station with their fear-mongering campaign that makes you believe that Gardasil is a good idea, because it's a bad idea. In fact, it's a deadly idea. And it's just been based on fraud and deception, and that just annoys me and frustrates me and righteously angers me, and it should you too. So read the package insert, ask that your doctors do, and have them explain why a fake SIBO study is relevant in America today, because it's not. The science is corrupt. Now, one of the things that we do in medicine is we do a full disclosure. A full disclosure is basically, I have to tell you who pays me. Any doctor that speaks before you, they should tell you what their conflicts of interest are. Are they receiving speaking fees from Merck or Purdue or whoever it might be? If Paul Offit stands before you and talks to you about how safe vaccines are, and how he actually said this, by the way, how he could receive 10,000 vaccines at one time and be safe. And you also know that he's a rotavirus patent holder. He's received millions of dollars from his conflict of interest in the vaccine industry. He's actually sat on the advisory committee at the CDC and voted himself into millions of dollars. So when you know that he's so terribly conflicted, and that his full disclosure is, I have made myself rich in vaccines, then you know he's lying. And you know that when they're conflicted like that, they're lying. So here's my full disclosure. I have no conflicts. I make no money in this industry. I don't sell programs. I'm not even taking new patients. I'm not trying to develop my practice. I drove here to stand before you because there is a tragedy going on in America today. The science is being corrupted, and somebody in medicine needs to stand up and put an end to it. To me, thank you. Yeah. And I have a message for my colleagues in medicine, and that message is you need to stand up. I know that there's a lot of doctors that feel the way I do, and they're afraid to stand up and speak because they know they're going to be attacked. I've been attacked. I'm being sued by a pediatrician that didn't like what I said about a newsletter in which she told a very, I'll be careful with my words because there is a lawsuit pending, but she told a very interesting story in a newsletter that looked a lot like a failure of informed consent. And I spoke out against that failure to fully inform the parents whose children are coming into these vaccine centers and not being informed that their child is at risk of injury, of death even, and they're not being told. They're being told, oh, it's safe and effective, and there's all of these studies that support it. But the fact of the matter is that the preponderance of those studies, if not all of them, are corrupt. Everybody knows about the CDC whistleblower case, right? That science, that 2004 publication, that the story that is told so well in Vaxxed is such an exposure of the fraud and corruption at every level in the science of supporting vaccines today. So, with all of these things in mind, I talk to my medical colleagues and I ask, you have got to start fighting for our children.
That's
you
right.
have a responsibility to do so.
That's right.
That's right. Defend our children, and instead of protecting them, instead of being the guardians for these young babies that come into these practices, you are fighting for your piece of cheese like a rat.
That's right.
And that's inexcusable. We can't stand for that, people. We cannot stand for that. The truth has got to be exposed. We've got to stop the abuse, and we have to do no harm.
Do no harm.
Let me say one more thing. One of the things that really got me into this fight was my own experience with when my grandson was born almost 4 years ago. The same thing happened to many of you. The nurse comes in. The mother is still groggy. My daughter was still groggy. Thank God I was there. But the nurse puts this clipboard in front of my daughter and says, here, sign this. This is for your shots. And I, fortunately, I was there, and I said, well, wait, let me see what it is that you want my daughter to sign. And it was a consent form for the hepatitis B vaccine, which absolutely has no merit. Any pediatrician
right.
that can stand before me, debate me on any format, I'll take anybody anywhere. I will debate you on the logistic and the reasonability of the hepatitis B vaccine,
That's
and
right.
you will walk away embarrassed with your lack of knowledge.
That's right.
Because that vaccine has no place in a newborn child.
Nope.
But they put that consent form in front of my daughter, and they just expected her to sign it, as so many do. But her dad was there, and I rose to.
You were like, uh-oh.
I didn't even know as much as I know now, but I knew that that was wrong. I knew that a vaccine being administered to my daughter without informed consent was negligence.
Right.
You know, it's not what we do in America, and yet it's being done in every hospital and every pediatric office across this country, and it's got to stop.
Yep.
But I stopped it on that day. Thank God I did, and I let that nurse and I let her supervisor know that what they were doing was a violation of informed consent. It was a violation of medical ethics, and that it should never happen in that hospital. We got out of there that day, but 6 weeks later, my daughter, who's here today, and my grandsons who are here today, called me crying from a pediatrician's office. Crying because the pediatrician wanted to catch Isaiah up on that hepatitis B, plus give a whole bunch of other vaccines, right? You know how this works.
Mm-hmm.
She calls me crying because that pediatrician is actually threatening to call Child Protective Services on my daughter. So I told my daughter, stay on the phone, honey. Your dad is a 5th-degree black belt in Taekwondo and a brown belt in Judo, and I'm an expert marksman, and I will be there in 6.2 minutes to extricate you from that dangerous place, and you will never go back. Because the reality is that was almost an assault that occurred. It was almost an assault that occurred on my grandson, and I stopped it on that day. And from that day forward, I've pledged to stop as many of those as I can. My prayer every day now, and in conclusion, I will tell you that my prayer every day is, please God, help me help one more.
That's right.
So I don't care how many people show up at an event like this. I just pray that my words will reach one more person and will save them from the abuse of the vaccine industry and the corruption that is harming too many children today. So I thank all of you for being here. That's my story. Let's stand together, shields locked, and let's fight this corruption. Thank you very much. Now I'm going to introduce Brandy Vaughan. Everybody should know Brandy Vaughan as the Merck whistleblower, one of the other great whistleblowers in this fight today. So very few people get sucked into the darkness of a corporation like Merck and find their way out of it. And that's the truth, because they got tons of money, one of the most profitable vaccine profiteers in the country, and they suck people in and they never get out. And they threaten people, and I know Brandy's been threatened. So you talk about a warrior. This is a woman that's been threatened by the company that has done more to harm children, threaten doctors, and she's brave enough to stand here before us. And to even better, she put together an organization called LearnTheRisk.org. And LearnTheRisk.org is one of those exceptional marketing companies that puts little, if you haven't seen them, they put these little Learn the Risk sticky notes on bathroom stalls and diaper changing stations all over the country. And I love that because her message is being heard, and people are waking up, and they're starting to save their children. So Brandy, I want to introduce you, and it is my great honor to introduce Brandy Vaughan, director of LearnTheRisk.org, and thank you so much for the warrior that you are. Please take this stage and tell us more about what you're doing.
All right, thank you everyone for being out here. It is a very important day, and it's a very important subject. So thank you, Dr. Meehan, for the amazing speech, the rally cry, and for the great introduction. One of the things that I learned in pharma was that basically they make money off keeping us sick and not healthy. And that's why I stand here today. Like Jim said, it hasn't been an easy road. It was only 2 years ago that I stepped out, and many people ask me why. Why do you speak against a company that is, a multi-billion-dollar company, one of the most powerful in the world, and you were an ex-employee, so they definitely don't go lightly. And I say because I could not speak out.
That's right.
I cannot be
That's
silent.
right. That's right.
Just like everyone here,
Woohoo!
we cannot be silent.
Can't be
And
silent.
our numbers are growing. And we are winning.
We are.
And we can tell by how much they are fighting us back. Because they know we have the truth.
Yep.
And they may have money. And they may be able to pay trolls on the internet. But we have the truth. And that is priceless.
That's right.
And we have the power of the people. So for those of you who don't know my story, I get asked this a lot. So I'm going to give you a brief summary. I used to work for Merck. I used to sell Vioxx. Does anyone remember that drug? Yeah?
Yep.
It's infamous. It was one of the largest medical scandals in the US. And in my 2 years of working at Merck, I went from selling that drug, winning sales awards for it, to all of a sudden having emergency trainings. Oh, we stopped that study that you were already talking about to doctors. What? You stopped it, and now we don't talk about it, and now we have a whole different marketing push? Well, for anyone that has a little bit of critical thinking, that was a red flag. And that spurred me to realize that things are not as they seem, right? Mm-hmm. These are not healthcare companies. These are businesses that profit off you being sick.
That's right.
So it came out that Merck stopped that study because of a 4 times increase in stroke and death rate in the population. And you know what they said? It's because the placebo had a protective effect. A protective effect. Unheard of, but a very great marketing push, isn't it? Amazing propaganda. My eyes were wide open. I left the company before Vioxx was even pulled from the market, and I started on a whole new path because ethically I could not stand for that. And in fact, most of my colleagues that sold Vioxx at that time have left the industry completely. So then I went to Europe and I saw how healthy people can really be, right? Because here in the US, it's normal to be sick, right? Everyone has an issue. Food allergy, autoimmune issue, fibromyalgia, cancer is skyrocketing, type 1 diabetes, asthma, all of these things, right? It's now normal to be on medications or be sick. But I lived in Europe and it is not normal there. It is not normal. People are healthy. They don't have seasonal allergies. They don't have food allergies. Do you know what my friends in Europe say? They're like, what do you mean you can't bring peanut butter to school, Brandy, for your son? I'm like, yeah, because there's allergies. And they're like, what? People are allergic to food? That's crazy.
Right.
Right? Why do we accept that?
That's right.
That
Why
is
do we?
crazy.
Why do
We are not biologically meant to be allergic to the food we need to survive. What is going on? And why are not more people asking those questions?
That's right.
Because we are a very sickly population. We are one of the sickest populations in the entire world.
Yep.
And if these medications and these vaccines, which we give more of than any other country in the developed world, are keeping us healthy, why are we so sick?
Right.
Why are we so sick? So, when I worked for Merck, I saw it. I saw the corruption. I saw how they keep us sick, right? While all brainwashing us to believe that they're healthcare, okay? So every single person here today, when you leave, I don't ever want to hear healthcare and the medical system in the same sentence out of your mouth. It is a sick care system, and we need to change the wording because we need to change this paradigm. It is not a healthcare system. It is a business keeping us sick, and they are doing a dang good job of it here, okay? As Dr. Jim went over the statistics, in terms of kids, we are losing a generation of children to chronic illness. 1 in every 2 children are chronically ill. That is incredible.
Right.
Experts say this generation of children is going to have a much shorter lifespan than their parents.
Right.
What is going on?
Right.
You know? And yes, it's the food.
Right.
And yes, it's the water. And yes, it's all the body care products and the cleaning products and everything, the perfumes, everything, right? Because they're all synthetic chemicals.
That's right.
But whatever you inject into your body
That's right.
bypasses the natural body's filter process.
That's right.
That is more potent.
That's right.
So they can call me crazy all they want.
Right.
But vaccines need to be the top thing we talk about.
That's right.
When we talk about health.
That's right. Amen.
Because they create pharmaceutical customers. They create health issues that we normally wouldn't have if we were not vaccinating at the same rate. They create health issues that then sell prescription drugs. That is what the medical industry and the pharmaceutical companies industry is built upon. They are the foundation. And that is why they call us crazy. And that is why they don't want us to stand up here and speak out. But that is not going to silence us. Right, Dr. Jim?
That's right.
And Dr. John? Because we are loud, and we are brave, and we are not going to stand by and lose our children to an industry that is keeping them sick. We are not going to sacrifice our children and their health and our humanity in the process to pay their large salaries.
That's right.
We are saying no to their healthcare system, sick care system. No more. And to me, this is one of the most important issues that we are facing today. Because when we talk about freedom, our freedoms are being taken away.
That's right.
They are passing laws, and they are encouraging the child police in all of the states to take away children. The pharmaceutical companies are encouraging doctors to call on parents who question them. Okay? Well, in my world, doctors are not God.
That's right.
There is a higher power that does not make mistakes.
That's right.
Don't let them take away your power to heal. Don't let them take away your health. That is what they are trying to do. And when we won't listen, when we say no, they try to pass laws so that we don't have rights. And our founding fathers are rolling over in their graves right now. Because if we don't have the right to health and we don't have the right to medical freedom, we have nothing.
We have nothing.
We have nothing. We become slaves to a system that is poisoning us.
That's right.
And I'm not going to mince words. It is poison.
Right.
There are toxins in those vaccines which do not belong in our body,
That's right.
that are known to cause health issues. The science is there.
Right.
The real science is there. And we are becoming slaves. So we're here today in 20 cities across the U.S. to say no, to stand up for our rights,
That's right.
for medical freedom, for our children,
That's right.
to stand up for our health. Because without that, we have nothing. And how do we fight back? We step out of their system. We say, no, thank you. I am going to be healthy. I choose health.
That's right.
I choose health outside of your system. And I have my own system with natural practitioners, alternative solutions for every health issue. I have not found one health issue yet that there is not a remedy, a natural healing remedy.
Right.
There are alternatives. Do not step inside that doctor's office and let him convince you otherwise.
That's right.
We need to step out of that system and say no, thank you. And we need to fight for our rights. But you know what? We're winning.
We are.
We are winning every day. More and more people are waking up. If you saw the messages I get, more people are getting it. They're connecting the dots. And thank you to every single one of you in front of me that is a part of that. Because we need to be the change that this world needs to see.
That's right.
It starts with every single one of us here.
That's right.
It is us that will change this world.
That's right.
So thank you for all you do. And when you get down, I want you to remember a quote from Gandhi. First, they will ignore you. Then they will laugh at you.
Right.
Then they will fight you. And boy, do they fight.
Right.
And then you win.
That's right.
And we have already won. They have money, but we have people, and we have the truth.
We have the truth.
And the truth is priceless.
That's right.
And we have a higher power watching out for us.
That's right.
So thank you for being part of that light. And thank you for everything you do. Now let's
Thank you,
go out there
Brandy.
and be the change that this world needs to see. Our children are counting on us. Woo! And I'm back. I believe we have to go for the march right now. Are we all pumped up? Pumped up enough? Logistics are being worked on right now. So, we have an amazing speaker up next as well. I'm going to let Christine introduce him, and then we're going to go for the march, and then we're going to come back for two other amazing speakers who will actually give you solutions on how to stay healthy outside of that system we need to get out of.
Thank you, Brandy. Sorry, things are not going according to the schedule that we had, but what I want to do now is introduce you to Richard Corey. He's actually going to speak to you about clean food and clean health, and he has a permaculture farm up in Denton. He teaches holistic well-being and yoga. So I'm going to hand it over to him.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming out. How are we feeling today? Who's happy with the way things are going in this country?
No.
Who likes to eat food that's a pesticide?
No.
Who likes to take health care that's a pesticide?
No.
All right, we just heard a lot about vaccines. How many people here are growing gardens right now? Excellent. How many want to be growing gardens? Excellent. Who would like to save over $50,000 a year and have their health? Right on. What we do at Permaculture Denton is we show people how to create regenerative systems, not just sustainable. Sustainable is putting back in as much as you're taking out. But regenerative systems feed back to life itself. So what we do is we show people how to create these regenerative systems that don't really require a constant work just in maintaining. The work is in harvesting. Your harvest is 5 to 8 times greater than the best organic methods. And so what you're getting then from the cleaner food is a better quality of life. We're all working extraordinary hours right now just to be able to pay bills that don't provide us anything. Everything is financing deficit of living. The deficit lifestyle, starting with a fiscal debt, has now brought us into a physiological debt. And our slavery has expanded to include the healthcare system. So now we can't even go get proper medication or proper treatment in the form of nutrients. So since we are now having to take care of ourselves, what we offer is simply a course that provides you the ability to take your health to an extraordinary new level and your debt to be removed just by growing your own food. And just as an example, for our property, our 0.39 acre house lot, we harvest over 5,000 gallons of rainwater per storm, and the garden grows itself. And we have over 175 varieties of food growing around our house. So there's not one thing that we're not growing that isn't feeding to the function of the specific body types in there. I personally left medicine, headed for cardiovascular surgery 25 years ago to study the effects of food on disease. I haven't taken a vaccine, nor have I given a vaccine. I have not taken any medication, nor given any medication in the last 25 years myself. And since then, I've worked with over 100,000 people using nothing but nutrients to get them beyond every disease process this country's come up with a name for. Okay? What we're doing now is showing people how to achieve on such a mass scale, showing them how to re-achieve their physiological balance without ever having to set foot in a doctor's office. How much are we spending on healthcare insurance this year? Show me hands for those who are spending $500 to $1,000 a month. Now, how many are spending more than $1,000 a month on healthcare?
Yeah.
Right on. Who's enjoying that? Is anybody getting better? Your pharmaceuticals are all made from synthetic chemicals first off, so all of your medications